Should you be letting one certain NFC North stud slip down your draft board? Which NFC South sophomore is rocketing up FFPC Big Gorilla ADP? And what's the fantasy fallout from the latest trade in the AFC? Plus, 2025 KFFSC Main Event champion Dan Flamholtz hops aboard to talk Steelers running backs, the FFPC Bare Knuckle Challenge, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your KFFSC Preview episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour starts right now.
Stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Welcome into the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm, of course, your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott. By the way, you can follow me on X at Eric Balkman. You may know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour Extra Rep Show, as well as the FFPC Insider Access Show on the Better Sports Network. Jam-packed show tonight. It is our annual Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship episode. Don't forget that you can post on X at us there on that social network at hsffhour. Check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at kffsc.com. We still have spots available there for you to join and play this year. Much more coming up on that. Post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/hsffhour. You can also email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, now is the time to send them in. Thanks to our audio engineer and my best friend Bryce and our producer and mutual friend Rob. Want to tell you about the FFPC Big Gorilla. You know it, you love it. It is crushing right now, and people are having a blast. I think we had 4 drafts go off, 4 live drafts go off tonight at 9:00. That's what Bryce is telling me. So that's pretty awesome. And you can jump in the fun too as well and compete against those players and more. $1 million grand prize at stake. $150,000 for the runner-up. The championship round will pay 800 spots deep. It is a super deep payout. Only $350 to enter. $50 off each additional team that you register for. And don't forget our 7 Bananas promo is going on right now. That is going to come to a close probably in the next week or so. So if you have a streak going, congratulations, keep it going. And you will still keep getting you free teams. For more information on how to win free FFPC teams with the 7 Bananas promo in the Big Gorilla, go now and register or check it out, the rules, at myffpc.com. That is myffpc.com. The co-host of this show, the host of this upcoming weekend, and the host of last weekend in Northern Kentucky, as the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship satellite live events are flying all over the place. I'm excited to get there on Friday and draft a boatload of teams. The guy who's in charge of it all, who makes it happen, the man, the myth, the legend, Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm pumped for this weekend.
You look good in that hat, man. You look good in that hat. And we have, we've got some people in the chat room, Balky, that they want breathtakingly lucid descriptions of your backup Green Bay running back, who may not be as much of a backup as we thought he might be. It's a great, I'll tell you something, Balky, a stat, if anybody ever asks you. You can get 39 draft boards in my Jeep, and I proved it twice. It's the glamour of the business that you love,
Is that a new record, 39?
No, that's just what it holds. I just was curious how much I could get in.
Once you try to shoehorn in that 40th,
number 40 isn't going. It's not. But it's a blast getting prepared for it. We've got a big weekend planned, and seeing all the guys comment. But they'll be here. They want to know about fantasy football. They want to talk to the champ. They're all. Jake Valich is throwing in some real tough questions for the champ. He wants to know things. He wants to know exact things. So this is going to be a good show.
Yeah, Jake is he's got a good question for Dan, who will be defending his title. Dan Flamholtz coming up on the show in about 10 minutes here. And he's got some good questions. And the chat does have, like Brent Studebaker has another good question, and we'll get to Brent's question shortly here tonight. I think without further ado, instead of just talking about the stuff we're going to do, let's actually do it.
Yeah.
Ferrell, in one of the wildest 6-hour periods I can remember in fantasy football history, it seemingly has come to a soft conclusion with Ashton Jeanty. This was Sunday evenings, late Sunday afternoon, where we find out he has an injury, couldn't put weight on his knee. There was a prayer circle. They killed the music at Raiders practice. It was crazy, very scary. A lot of people assumed that Jeanty was out for the year, only to find out, and then obviously it adjusted naturally. Mike Washington became like a 5th or 6th round pick in Big Gorilla and Main Event contests. And Jeanty fell as late. We saw Darren Armani, Fantasy Mojo, at Fantasy Mojo on the X, fantasymojo.com. If you have a subscription, or if you play in the FFPC, you should have a subscription to Fantasy Mojo. Anytime we cite ADP on this show, it's all due to Darren Armani. But he posted that Jeanty fell as late as the 12th round in the Big Gorilla. And we find out it's an ankle sprain. Ian Rappaport is reporting that it's more low than high, but it's somewhere in the middle between low and high. Obviously, he may not start the season healthy, and we could get a Mike Washington start week 1 against the Dolphins. Clint Kubiak was asked about this, said he wasn't going to get into injuries. He said Jeanty is on the mend. It also sounds like he is probably going to avoid the PUP list. So if he does miss regular season time, it should not be 4 games. It should be less than that. This was wild, man, with in regards to Jeanty, in regards to Washington. But knowing what we know now, how far are you letting Jeanty slip in your drafts, and how much are you bumping up Mike Washington based on a potential high ankle sprain for Jeanty?
Mike Washington, an interesting player. You wonder how they keep him off the field. That combination of size and speed is intriguing, but Jeanty is expected to carry the load. So now 12th round was in our drafts in Northern Kentucky, as late as he went was 3. And, prayers were answered. They had a prayer circle. Prayers were answered. He's Washington. I suppose now what you're going to do is invest in both running backs, and you're going to have to overpay. You're going to have to overpay for Washington.
I don't think you have to overpay for. I mean, like the thing of it is, if I'm drafting in like the KFFSC Main, for instance, or the FFPC Main or the Big Gorilla, I am not paying up for both of them. I will pick one or the other for each individual team.
Well, and you got that problem with a lot of teams in the league, and some of it is not injury related. And yes, you have to make a decision, but you could have made a decision earlier with Jeanty at 1 and Washington double digits deep. And yes. I think you had a very, very valuable player. Now you don't want to pay what you have to pay for Washington. So look, don't draft in fear, drafters. That's my advice for you.
That will be written on your tombstone, Ferrell. In the next, whenever you pass away in the next 80, 90, 100 years, whatever it is, that will be on the tombstone for Ferrell Elliott. He never drafted in fear. Yeah, we bring up Studebaker's question, Brent Studebaker.
Okay.
I think Brent had we'll get to the question right now. In regards to, I think he just said, and I'm trying to, God bless it, I'm trying to throw it up on the screen right now. Shivadelphia, thank you. I'm glad you're looking forward to the show. We look forward to having you aboard tonight. Brent Studebaker, I put up this wrong comment. Okay, here we go. I just want to know about Marshawn Lloyd.
That's right.
And so Jason Hirschhorn, actually a former colleague of mine, posted on Blue Sky, that Brian Gutekunst said the team has already been preparing for Josh Jacobs to be suspended. That was the headline we got at Roto World. I will say it's a little bit more nuanced than that. Gutekunst, the quote is, we've obviously been preparing for that in case that happens. But at the same time, I feel really good about the guys we have in that room. Adam Schefter, we all knew about it a couple of weeks ago that the league was talking about, that all these suspensions came off, right? And yet Puka Nacua was not suspended. Josh Jacobs was not suspended. And it's still a possibility that he could be suspended. But I will say it's not like they have these all these undrafted free agent guys that are unproven in this backfield. Marshawn Lloyd looks healthy for the first time ever in his NFL career. Got some stuff taken care of. He went to the same place that Christian Watson went to, and then he went to another place, I believe, in Southern California this offseason to try to figure out what's going on with his soft tissue injuries, and he's been healthy this preseason. They also have guys like Pierre Strong, who not only showed out rushing the ball in the preseason, but showed out on special teams. A guy with an NFL track record. Another guy, Ferrell, that a lot of the prospect bros out there loved coming out of college from a couple of years ago was Damian Martinez. He's a part of that running back room too. So you have Strong, you have Jacobs, you have Martinez. There's some other guys there as well. So even if Jacobs is suspended, I don't know if you're going to be able to get somebody worthwhile either via trade or off the waiver wire that's going to be any better than those guys. So I think the Packers are going to go to battle with this running back room. That said, to talk about Marshawn Lloyd, super athletic, super talented. He can catch the ball. The best ability in the NFL, as Ferrell will tell you, is availability. And it seems like he might have turned the corner there. You never want to count your eggs before they're hatched, but certainly it's looking promising for Lloyd right now. And yeah, I will be drafting him this weekend in Kentucky if I can get a good price on him, which I may not be able to. But Ferrell, I want to weigh in on the Josh Jacobs aspect of this with you, knowing what we know about what the GM for the Packers said this week about Jacobs. How are you handling him, knowing that FFPC drafters are taking him at running back 18 in the FFPC Big Gorilla right now? He is a 407 pick ahead of players like DeAndre Swift, Cam Skadaboo, and David Montgomery.
I'm going to put those guys ahead of him. And before we even saw how well Lloyd was playing, and we dug a little deeper into into this commentary that he might be suspended. I drafted Jacobs in one draft and immediately had buyer's remorse. I'm right there in running back, and I did it, and I wished I hadn't, and I won't do it again. Now that's me personally. General managers, I love the way he asked the question. They prepare for everything. The Titanic, Balky, had lifeboats on it. So but you've got a situation where they like the backs in the room. They'll play with those backs. They're expecting if any suspension comes, it'll be a short one, but they really don't think they're going to get one. There's commentary in the chat that they could bring in someone. Not really. And that's a very good commentary about Jacobs, only 28. I always think he's older. He feels like he's 32. Yeah, he's been around forever. He's got a lot of mileage on him. But he's got something to prove, and the best thing when you're having personal problems is to get on the field and prove it. Jacobs, given the opportunity, Jake Valish points out that Lloyd is a great player. He'll play 3 quarters the whole season, and I think that's probably about right.
I think the Packers would love it if Lloyd only played 3 quarters this year, because that means Josh Jacobs is healthy and his body's been able to handle it. Regarding those running backs, I would say that I'm probably taking Jacobs still over Montgomery. I'm still taking Jacobs probably over Skadaboo, but that's close right now. I think I am taking Swift over Jacobs at this point. That is one player I am not with ADP on. I'd be taking Swift over Josh Jacobs right now with the Monangai injury. And, captain consistency for DeAndre Swift has been unbelievable so far this year. Joe King coming into us with a question. We have I'm going to bring this up right now because I'm in a KFFSC big payback slow draft right now, and I just was pondering this exact same thing. Emmett Johnson or Tank Bigsby. That's 3 to 4 rounds later for the same Marshawn Lloyd upside. I ended up going with Bigsby. Those are the 2 players I was deciding between. I went with Bigsby because of Bigsby doesn't have any standalone value, but if Barkley were to go down, I think you're looking at Bigsby as a top 15 running back, maybe top 10 running back, depending upon how that Eagles offense shakes out this year. Emmett Johnson has certainly been coming on. We know Kenneth Walker is no stranger to the trainer's room. My concern with with Emmett Johnson is A, he's a rookie, and B, they have other guys there like Amari Emari DeMarcado is a guy that has always seemed to find his way into a pass catching role. And I don't really see that in Philly. So ultimately I went Bigsby. Farrell, who would you rather have this year, Bigsby or the rookie Emmett Johnson?
I think I will go Bigsby as well. But you know what I'm going to do, Balky? I'm going to draft so many high-end running backs. I'm going to be so heavy at running backs that when these guys show up to be drafted, I'm going to be drafting talented wide receivers who I can identify the skill set and clear use in the offense, a defined role that I think I can put my draft capital in.
I want to bring in our guest tonight.
Let's do it
right now, because this is royalty we're talking to tonight, Ferrell, and it's very exciting. Anytime he's been on our show before, I think, and I'd have to go back and check, but I think we had him on the show a couple of years ago, and he said, you know what, I'm going to give this Kentucky thing a try.
Yeah, he did.
Decided to play. So, and I've hung out with him a couple of times in Louisville. He and I always seem to find ourselves at that bar right outside Gordon Ramsay's Steakhouse after all the drafting is done. And we figure we solve the world's problems after that. He's been solving fantasy football problems for years. He has won well over a dozen FFPC leagues, countless KFFSC leagues over the years. And last year, he outlasted every single competitor, yours truly included, in the KFFSC main event to win the coveted 2025 Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship title. Please welcome in as the guest tonight on our annual KFFSC preview episode. It is the Hammer himself, Dan Flamholtz. Congratulations, champ, once again. How's it going tonight, dude?
Doing well, thank you. Thank you for having me again, Balky and Ferrell. How are you guys doing tonight?
We're doing good. I'm just looking at the screen that you have up right now, Dan. Why are you the blue Hammer tonight instead of just the Hammer? This is weird.
Yeah, I was doing a couple of drafts recently, and I saw a couple of other Hammers with team names. So, I wanted to avoid any confusion
differentiate
or controversy. So. When I first joined the FFPC about 5-6 years ago, many of my team names started off as Blue Hammer, and I just converted it to Hammer along, sometimes along the way. So I just went back to the original name and just stuck with the Blue Hammer, at least for some of my teams.
I thought Balky and Hammer, I thought it was because you now own Kentucky. You decided to adopt the color of the state. Balky, when he first came here, he facilitated more drafts than he drafted. I told the Hammer, I said, you got to play. And you don't want to go to a swim party and watch everybody else in the pool. You've got to get in the pool. And so he came and he says, Ferrell, you were right. I should have played a little more. I should have bought more teams. So he comes back last year.
He was a wish I had, Ferrell.
He was a wish I had. And he comes back last year, and he had added one last team at the last minute to draft on Friday night at the Canton Division. And, Dan, I'll let you take the story from there.
Yep, that was the team that allowed me to be fortunate enough to win the overall championship. Got real interesting that last Monday night game, as we talked about previously, the last time you had me on back in May, but it was worth the stress that last night.
Well, and go ahead.
Always grateful and fortunate to win, and thank goodness Nakua ended up being out of bounds on that final play of the fourth quarter, which potentially could have led to a field goal, which would have extended the game. And, Lee Oldenburg, I think, was breathing down my neck pretty hard. He had Bijan Robinson, and the fact that catch was ruled incomplete, so it wasn't a catch. The game ended, and, I escaped narrowly with the win.
Every NFL game comes down to 2 or 3 plays. Every NFL season comes down to a dozen plays. It doesn't surprise me that you were in that situation on the Monday night. And I was very pleased with the outcome. We had 5 top finishers. All could have made excellent champions for us. And the delegates from the Sopranos, Stephen G's boys, Reddy and Carbone, came down here and won many divisions, won big paybacks. They also finished with 2 teams, I think, 6th and 8th. So there was just a lot of great play that from players that were making their first trip to Kentucky last year, and Hammer was making his second.
Yeah, and it was it's always a lot of fun drafting Kentucky, and Dan, I'll let you weigh in on this too. But like my whole thing, and I'm kind of unique in this regard, but like I don't draft live drafts throughout the season. Like I'm busy with other stuff with FFPC and my like whatever. I can't really dedicate 2 hours or an hour and a half or whatever it is to do a live Kentucky draft. Ferrell is incredibly accommodating, and I've done 24 plus slow drafts with Kentucky this year. But the one thing I look forward to is actual live drafting coming up at Caesars.
And then you go to the bar and you spend time with Dan. Do you ever go to your room? Do you ever spend any time in your room at all?
I'm not there a whole lot because I like doing the early, like the sunrise at the Bourbon Turns drafts. I like getting up. I got work to do while I'm out there too. So it's very like I'm one of the last guys to go to bed, and I'm usually one of the first people up too. So I don't spend a whole lot of time there, but that's okay because I'm just having a blast out there. And Dan, like the thrill of drafting live in Kentucky against people that a lot of FFPC players who have come out over the last 10 or 15 years to Kentucky because they sort of look at it as like a prep ground to get ready for the main event out in Las Vegas. We've had a lot of high stakes drafters. A lot of the people we've had on this show are now and have been drafting in Kentucky, yourself included, Dan, which has been tremendous. And it's so much fun sitting down and rubbing shoulders with these people I've had on the show, with these people that have won all this money in Kentucky and FFPC, Dan. It's always quite a thrill every year.
It is. And it's, not only is it a lot of talent from a draft perspective, but a lot of great personalities, great people, met a lot of friends over the last 2 years that I keep in touch with throughout the year. You mentioned Jake Villek, Stuart Keene, Tom Herron, Chuck Root, just to name a few. Great guys, great people, and it's really a pleasure to be able to hold on to those relationships, not only at the Kentucky drafts during the weekend in late August, but really throughout the year to talk about fantasy football and, sometimes just life in general. Great people, great drafters, great competition. It's really a wonderful experience, and it's great to be a part of the high stakes fantasy community in that manner.
Yeah. Speaking of Jake Villek right now, he is posting. He has a question here for you, Dan. What draft slot will you be targeting in Kentucky, and how much fab will you be willing to spend to secure that spot? He also said, please be as specific as possible. So there you go, Dan. You can put it like I'll just and nobody cares what I do, but I'll just tell everybody I like to bounce around. Like I'm doing, I think 7 or 8 drafts this weekend. So I'll do some from the front, some from the middle, some from the back. I don't really have a preference. I just like the fresh look I get from all different spots. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, my approach is, this year, I think I would really like to be in the top 3. If I'm not in the top 3, drop me down to number 12.
And that's an interesting commentary, Dan, because that's what we saw at Cincinnati. And for the people that are unaccustomed with this is how we decide where you're drafting. We don't assign you a draft spot for the live events. We gather in a circle and begin a live auction. You're using your fab money. It takes 5 to 10 minutes. If nobody wants to bid on a spot, we skip it and go to the next spot. What we experienced in Cincinnati was very active and very competitive bidding for the first 3 spots. And then spot number 4 was a non-starter. It was not, and many times we skipped a lot. We skipped many draft spots to get to the end with competition for 10, 11, 12. So it made it a lot of laughs, a lot of fun. It really loosens everyone up before the draft starts. And because, our thought has always been that we want you to come here and get the players that you want, not get assigned a draft spot. And it's a task to keep track of it all, and it's a task to do it. But it's worth it, I think.
But
Yeah,
you realize,
go ahead,
you
Dan.
realize that if you're in the league with Fozzie Dog, he always gets number 1 or number 12. So if I see him in the circle, I know I only have a really slight chance of getting number 12 because he'll spend $500 to get those 2 spots.
Fozzie may just spin out of that this year. You never know. He's got some new game. He's bringing new game.
I'm relatively cheap with spending fab money on draft picks. I'd like to keep it for free agent acquisitions. So we'll see what happens.
You know what's funny about Fozzie too? I think it was 2024. He owned the 11 and 12 spot, mostly the 12 spot, and he was spending, never less than $400 to get it. And I was kind of getting annoyed. I'm like, God, I'm never going to get a 12 spot here this whole weekend because I'm in every draft with Fozzie, and he's always getting it. And then last year I saw him going for like the 1 and the 2. And so like it just always seems like he wants to be, maybe it's like a glaucoma thing for him where he's got to be sitting as close to the draft board as possible, no matter what end it is, whether it's the 12 or the 1, he's just got to be that close to the draft board. I'm not sure. But it does add an element to a 3rd round reversal in KFFSC as well, which is another little wrinkle. So, and I'll just give this message to all the FFPC people that I'm responding to via email saying that they never get such and such pick and they always get the same pick or whatever. If you have a problem with that, Louisville is waiting for you, and you can pick your draft spot when you draft live at the KFFSC, however much you want to spend. And Dan, I'm with you. I normally I don't want to say I'm always cheap because sometimes I will spend up for a spot that I want, but most of the time I'm taking kind of whatever nobody else wants. Like David Hubbard always says, you can win from any spot on the board. Yes. And I'm like, great, I'll have this extra money in my fab. And you know what I never do? I never spend all my fab. I have all this fab money. So now I'm thinking like I need to spend up more in Kentucky this year and just get these draft spots I want because I'm not going to spend the money anyway. So
Balky, you got to spend that money. You got to spend that money on the last week. We go out there and have a South Spring.
Exactly. Here we go. The first question tonight, Dan, and I know I've asked you a bunch already. Colson Loveland. I drafted him. You and I and Ferrell, actually, we were all at the Kentucky Super Sunday drafts for Super Bowl weekend in February. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't targeting Colson Loveland. I just seemed to be getting him in like, I don't know, probably 6 out of my 8 drafts or whatever that I did that weekend. Like, God, I got a lot of Loveland. And I was thinking about this over the course of the last couple of weeks, and I've been listening to people talk about it. He had an injury coming into the season, and it knocked him out for a good portion of the season. And then he dealt with a second injury. He had a shoulder, and I think the second one was a hip or something like that. He came on at the end of the year, finally healthy. But I think if you look at his production, it was mostly in this small sample size at the end of the 2025 season, mm-hmm. and in games when the Bears were constantly trying to throw their way back into the game. I think about the 2 Packers games totally evident where they get down to Green Bay and then they throw. Loveland is catching in a lot of these games. And then he ends up having a fantastic performance. I'm wondering what the level of concern FFPC players should have with a player like Loveland who had an end of the season like that, where we want to be aware of recency bias and how that could be affecting us. And yet at the same time, you think about the draft capital. This is not like a top 15 or a top 20 tight end. This is a top 3 tight end that you have to invest in to get him this year. And I'm wondering what the advice you would give for people who are considering drafting Loveland, not only in the FFPC early, but the KFFSC as well. Yeah.
My advice is don't be concerned. He averaged
don't draft in fear.
He averaged 12 targets over the last 4 games, 2 of them being playoff games. So it just shows you the confidence that the coaching staff and the team has in Colson Loveland to be a major contributor. He's very talented, can run the full route tree, can get downfield. And let's just extrapolate an average of 12 targets a game over a 17-week schedule. That's over 200 targets. And I think we would all agree that 200 targets really isn't practical, right? But let's be conservative and shave off about 4 targets a game, right? So that brings you, let's say 8, if you want to give him another target, 9 targets. So you're up around 140 to 150 targets over the course of a 17-game season. If you take the average conversion rate for tight ends of targets, it's right around 65%. So let's give Colston Loveland a few more percentage points because he's an elite player.
Mm-hmm.
And let's also hope, Caleb Williams improves his accuracy with another year in the Bears offensive system. So let's say the conversion rate of Colston Loveland's targets is around 70%. So right there, you're talking about 95 to 100 catches.
Sure.
It's insane.
Right? So I'm willing to take Colston Loveland, and I did during the Big Gorilla draft that you broadcasted live on July 10th. I took him at 2.3. And I think if you take him at 2.3, there's still room for upside because I feel at this time next year, we'll be talking about Loveland as a mid to late first round pick. A lot of people have concerns about, who's going to be the number one passing option in that Chicago Bear offense. Well, I'm putting my money on Loveland. I think Loveland will be the number one option in the passing offense. And I think Burden and Adunze will battle it out for the number two option on a weekly basis. So for me, I don't think he's going to get 12 targets a game, but he doesn't have to justify a second round pick. And then obviously in these tournaments, whether it's the FFPC or the KFFSC, you need to have those players and you need to be willing to gamble a little bit on that unknown upside. Because
people will talk about players that go early and say, well, he's already going high in the draft. What are you talking about upside? Well, I think Puka Nacua is an example of exactly what you were talking about with the guy that where was Nacua going last year? Into the first, early second?
I'll tell you, he was my second round pick on the team that won the championship.
Yeah, there you are. And
right?
so you can repeat the same thing. You could repeat the same thing with Loveland. And Joe King put up an interesting commentary about Schultz. He's crediting Schultz with a few more catches than he got. But I'm with you, Joe. I see what you're saying. So but fellas, the New England Patriots, tentacles and coaching tree and front office throughout the league, their reach is impressive. We've talked about Keyshawn Boutte being moved out of that lineup in New England, and now you see him headed to Houston. We talked last week, Dan, about what would make things work for the quarterback and the offense in Houston was to have, after the injury, to have another dominant second receiver, number two receiver, come in. I think Boutte is an excellent example, and I think the Caserio, the former pro personnel director at New England, knew how to get that deal done with his former employee. So in this situation, Boutte, I don't think has any effect on Nico Collins' production, other than to help it as another receiver, as another very, very good target. And the question that we have, because of the FFPC, and we want to talk about the importance of the FFPC drafting with the tight end, is what do you do? And Schultz is lagging. He's lagging in our drafts that we're having in Kentucky. And Balky, I don't think there's a great deal of excitement for a player like Schultz this year in the FFPC. So I think there's an excellent player that could outperform his draft spot and tremendous upside. And I don't think Boutte's addition does anything to hurt Schultz with his production. Do you agree with me or disagree?
I actually think it helps Schultz quite a bit. I think what you have to remember with Boutte is that he's a downfield target, right? So if you look at the average amount of yards Boutte had per reception, it was around 18, 19 yards per reception. So defenses actually have to respect that deep threat. So I think that actually helps Schultz with the underneath routes because they can't crowd the line of scrimmage and the safeties have to stay back a little bit to respect what Boutte can do. Plus the fact that the Texans' offensive line needs a lot of improvement. So I also think that helps Dalton Schultz because I think C.J. Stroud's going to have to get rid of the ball sometimes a little bit quicker than what is intended. So even if Schultz is not the primary target on certain routes, he's going to get a lot of catches being the secondary route. So to your point, Ferrell, maybe Schultz's upside overall is capped a little bit by not being the number one receiving option and maybe not having a lot of yards after the catch. However, with that said, he does possess upside relative to where he's being drafted. So if he's going right now, let's say in round 11, all you need him to do is produce like a round 7 or round 8 pick to get significant upside and have him pay and get that value and really make him a major contributor to your team as you compete in this tournament.
Yeah, I did not think as a football player, Balky, that he played that well last year. But as a fantasy football player, he was wonderful.
Dalton Schultz, tight end 20, to Dan's point, 11-11 right now in his ADP over the last 2 days in the FFPC main event. Remember that you can play in the FFPC main event right now. $600 off each additional team you purchase after your first one, $1 million grand prize, 200 spots deep will the championship round pay, $200,000 to the runner-up, $1 million to the winner. MyFFPC.com is ready to go for that. Compete live in Las Vegas against guys like Dan Flamholtz, who will be out there this year competing in the main event, or from the comfort of your own home as well. MyFFPC.com for the main event. We move forward here and talk about the Texans a little more. Dan, what do you make of this purported workload split? I know Jane Slater, I want to say from NFL Network, was reporting about a month or 2 or 3 weeks ago, talking about a potential 50-50 split that she walked back, but she kind of clarified a little bit more. And now we hear other beat writers saying, based on what they're seeing in practice, this could be a 50-50 split. I do know there's plenty of fantasy pundits out there that are kind of just saying that there's no way that this would happen. Woody Marks had the opportunity last year. He was highly inefficient. They gave up this capital for Montgomery. They want to make sure that he is the guy that is leading this charge. How do you think the workload split is going to work between Montgomery and Marks in Houston this year?
Yeah, I think Montgomery will get most of the early down work and also the work inside the 5, inside the 10. So probably it could be one of those situations where for every 2 series that Montgomery gets, maybe Marks gets 1 and Marks is in on 3rd down a little bit more because he's a little bit more explosive in the passing game. So overall, I would say probably more like a 70-30 or 60-40 split in favor of Montgomery. And I actually think both have value where they're currently being drafted. I think if Montgomery remains as a mid-5th round pick and Woody Marks remains going around 10 or 11, I think both could be useful to have on your roster because I do think Marks does possess upside as a pass-catching back. And if something does happen to Montgomery, and he's been nicked up a lot over the last couple of years, whether it's a knee or I believe an ankle injury, he's missed 3 or 4 games at least the last couple of years. I think Marks could be very useful as a high-end handcuff that could also generate some flex value along the way.
Fellas, Adam Hahn, I'm going to start using Adam's real name again. Adam Hahn checks in and says Marks will be a thorn to Monty owners. And yes, Marks is going to do a little more than what we suspect because I think that they're going to move those chains, and Marks 3.7 yards per carry mixed with Montgomery will get down in distance that might reward those wide receivers. But I'll remind Adam that Mark struggled mightily inside the 10-yard line, as the entire Houston team did, and Montgomery will not do it. And that's where we're going to.
I just want to say this real quick about what Adam was saying here. A thorn to Monty owners. And yes, that could be true. But he also might be a needle to Montgomery owners. What do I mean by that? I mean this. The needle of the medicine that Woody Marks is injecting into David Montgomery owners. That yes, you're not getting the full Monty as throughout the season because of Marks, right? But Marks working in and taking away that little bit of volume from Montgomery might be what keeps Montgomery healthy all season and into the fantasy playoffs and maybe help you winning $1 million. So yeah,
quality over quantity.
Right, exactly.
What in the world, Dan, is the quantity of carries going to be for the Pittsburgh running backs? I think I've made up my mind, but I want to hear what you think. The difference between Warren and Dowdle. Is there a difference? Is it a true 50-50 split? And what does that mean for drafting these players?
I think on the early downs, it will be more or less a 50-50 split. Both could convert in the red zone as well. But I think the major difference is the advantage that Jaylen Warren has on third down. Rico Dowdle has a reputation of not being the best running back in picking up blitzes and in pass protection. So if you're not good on third down and pass protection, especially on the Pittsburgh Steelers team that has some offensive line opportunities, and we all know Aaron Rodgers isn't the most mobile quarterback at this stage of his career, I think Jaylen Warren is going to be on the field quite a bit more than Dowdle. And I think there's a lot of value with Warren with being that running back that at least has a 50% split on early downs, but also will get those receptions on third down. Because I think Warren will be the back on the field at that point in time, and Dowdle will just be an early down back. So
and that's something that I thought about too, and I absolutely love Dowdle's skill set. I love watching him play. I love watching him run. So I have a problem with either of them. I just don't want to get involved. So, you know, because and Balky, we see these questions to the Hammer very direct from Jimmy Williams and from Jake and everything. Because Hammer's such a quality guy, he'll answer directly. He won't give anybody anything. That's why you make such a great interview.
But here's the thing. When you talk about Warren and Dowdle, I think Warren is more or less going in the late 6th round, and Dowdle is going in the mid 7th round, I believe.
Yeah,
there's only a half a round difference, but for me, the true upside player is Jaylen Warren, because not only could he match Dowdle's carries on the early downs, but I really truly believe the upside with Warren being the third down back, you kind of get the best of both worlds with Warren. And he may end up outproducing his 6th round draft position by a couple of rounds.
And Adam comes in again, Balky, talking about better than last year. Warren gets Gainwell's dump offs from last year. I don't think last year has anything to do with this year's Pittsburgh team.
I will say this. They got the same quarterback, a quarterback who I believe 57 years old, Aaron Rodgers right now. That is a guy who does not want to get hit, and that is a guy who cannot run out of trouble. So I think, like, while the team is different, you're right, Ferrell. I will say that those dump-off opportunities, specifically that aspect of the offense, I think is going to be back this year. And I think Warren now I know that there's been reports that Dowdle's working in and Warren's a pass catcher, and good on him for sure. But I've been drafting a lot of Warren so far this year.
Lee Snyder just said you should draft Pittman. Somebody beat me to it, Balky.
Yeah, Pittman's opens up a lot of opportunity. Absolutely, yeah.
Somebody beat me to it in the show.
It can't all be Pittman, which will be one of my team names. No, it can't all be Pittman. The Baby Gorilla ADP for the Pittsburgh Steelers guys is not far off from what Dan was saying to us earlier. You're looking at Jaylen Warren at the 6'10". You're looking at Rico Dowdle at the 7'06". If you want to take advantage of those ADPs in the Baby Gorilla, and you always want to play high stakes fantasy football, never been able to before because of the barrier to entry, it's $125 to play in the Baby Gorilla, and I still have a $100,000 grand prize in there. MyFFPC.com is where to go. Same exact format as the Big Gorilla. Manage leagues, placing waiver bids, setting your lineups. MyFFPC.com. Join the inaugural Baby Gorilla today and take your shot at a 6-figure grand prize. We continue our discussion of these muddy backfields, which we know, if you are taking pieces out of these nebulous backfields, it has turned into fantasy success before. And you could see some fantasy success from the Jacksonville backfield right now. I want to specifically ask you about Chris Rodriguez, Dan. When I look at the ADP Rodriguez is basically right on that borderline, halfway through the Big Gorilla ends. 10-12 is his ADP right now, in the early 40s for running backs. And you think about how high Bashal Tutin's been going, especially in the wake of this LaQuint Allen injury. Do you think FFPC players are underrating Chris Rodriguez in Jacksonville?
I do. I think he's being underrated, but I also think that Bashal Tutin is being drafted appropriately as well. I just don't think Chris Rodriguez and Tutin should be that far apart. I think Rodriguez should be more or less kind of like a 7th or 8th round pick versus going in round 10. I do think Rodriguez has limitations as being a pass catching running back, right? He's more of a bigger back, between the tackles runner, but throughout his career, he has averaged pretty close to 5 yards a carry, right? And then him being familiar with the head coach, Liam Cohen, I do think that Rodriguez is going to factor into the Jaguars offense. And if Tutin truly is just one of those running backs that does well between the 20s and Rodriguez gets the goal line carries, that certainly will cap Tutin's upside. But again, if Tutin is going in round 5 and late in round 5, like he has in recent drafts, he could still get enough yardage and pass catching and, some touchdowns to justify that round's pick. But I also think Rodriguez is going a little bit too late.
Good for Rodriguez. Oh, guys, let's stay with the same team, but let's quit talking about running backs. I got to talk about receivers. Parker Washington has not necessarily blown up the FFPC drafted boards. I've always thought he was a value this year. Balky can tell us where Darren Armani has him with the mojo, but I thought 6th or 7th round was a great spot to grab Parker Washington. Earlier, we were getting him later. But in Kentucky, where we start 3 wide receivers in our drafts this year, he was regularly going in the middle of the 4th round in our drafts from this past Sunday. I'm more excited to see this player produce than I am a lot of players this year. And Jacksonville has many good things going on, especially at the quarterback position. Dan, do you agree with me that Parker Washington is a value in the KFFSC at the 4th round, and I'm sure he's a value in the FFPC at anything later?
Absolutely. I'm a big Parker Washington fan. As a matter of fact, when you had me on back in May, I mentioned that at this time next year, I think Parker Washington will be discussed as a 2nd or 3rd round pick versus an FFPC. I believe he's creeping up now into the latter part of round 5.
Mid-round 5, Dan. Mid-round 5.
Mid-round 5. Okay. And then when you had me on in May, he was like mid-round 7.
Right.
Right. So
that's why you draft early, Dan. Good man.
That's right. So he is creeping up. But to me, I think he's still a great value, because if you're getting him, in the middle of round 5 in FFPC drafts, and you think that next year he could be a 2nd or 3rd round pick, that's a lot of upside in those early rounds that he could really, deliver for you. And the reason why I'm really high on Parker Washington is because even though it's a small sample size, he did show what he's capable of. He has great chemistry with Trevor Lawrence, and if he continues to play that slot role, similar to what Chris Godwin did in Tampa under Liam Cohen, he's going to be a target monster. He might end up with 90 to 100 catches this year. And I don't see Brian Thomas or Jacoby Myers as a threat to Parker Washington. Again, I view Parker Washington as the wide receiver 1 in that offense, and I think Brian Thomas and Jacoby Myers might have some spike weeks here and there, but from a consistency standpoint, I think Parker Washington will get the majority of targets and will be a factor in that offense every week.
I don't know. I might have taken Brian Thomas once, but I have taken Parker Washington multiple times. I've taken Jacoby Myers multiple times when I was just trying to get pieces of this Jacksonville offense. But I think Parker Washington is where it's at. And the reports that we've been getting out of Jacksonville and what we've seen, it's been very, very bullish on Parker Washington.
Well, Chuck Root messaged me 3 days ago, and he told me he's taking Parker Washington in round 2 just so I can't get him.
Former $500,000 FFPC champion Chuck Root is doing that, and I know he's going to be in Louisville this coming weekend as well. For sure. Very excited to see him again. Parker Washington in the Big Gorilla, which is a managed league, 507 for his ADP in the best ball tournament for the FFPC. Dan, that is where he is going, basically at that 5-6 turn right next to Christian Watson, which I think is because when I don't know if you're going to necessarily see spike weeks from Washington. I guess you could, but the attraction with Washington out of all those other Jacksonville receivers is the consistency, which you may not need in the best ball tournament. So you could actually join the best ball tournament in the FFPC and fade Washington and go with some of these other spike week guys. And why wouldn't you play in the FFPC best ball tournament this year? It was $300K for the grand prize last year, which was good. And now it's great because it's $400,000 to the winner there in the best ball tournament. Register now. Slow drafts, live drafts going on myffpc.com. $125 to enter $400K grand prize for the FFPC best ball tournament. All right, we flip to a look ahead. I know we were talking Kentucky, and we're very excited to be in Louisville this weekend, Dan. But you're going to be drafting in one of, I think, the most underrated drafts in all of the FFPC landscape. After the second game of the season on Thursday night with the Patriots and Seahawks, you're going to be drafting in the Bare Knuckle Challenge. For the uninitiated, this is a 28-round draft, 30 seconds on the clock. You cannot use your phone, computer, laptop, tablet, pencils, papers, nothing but that big brain in your head. And Dan, how do you prep for a draft like this? I got to believe you're going crazy.
Stay sober, number one.
That's half the battle. That is half the battle. Yeah.
And number two, do more drafts, right? Do more drafts. The more draft boards you see, the better off you'll be in memorizing players, and not only memorizing those players, but also having a better idea about when you should start taking players, right? Mm-hmm. And then also just, certainly by the end of the preseason, just know the team's depth charts, know their wide receivers, know their running backs, know their tight ends, not only their starters, but their second string, third string, so on and so forth. And just relax and have a good time. Don't be nervous, keep a clear head and have fun with it.
I know former guest of the show, Sean Green, is drafting in that this year. Dominic Guzzetti, who'll be on the show on Friday, it says, I want in on that. Well, you can, Dom, if you want to be in on it, because there are still 5 spots available. We got about, a little over 2 weeks before that draft. 5 spots available for the Bare Knuckle Challenge. Sign up now at myffpc.com. Very exciting to see not only the Bare Knuckle going on, but all the other drafts that are going on there too. Ferrell, I've been excited for my Alec Pierce shares now that Chris Ballard has finally told us that he expects Pierce to resume practicing next week. But I think this is a good opportunity to talk to Dan about that.
This is why you don't live in fear, Balky, and you never do. A lot of naysaying about Pierce and a lot of elevation about Josh Downs. Now Downs seems to have a variety of small nagging issues, and Pierce is, he's just been working on the side and getting his body right. And the body has to get right to have this long season. That's what you want. You don't want a superstar in preseason. You want a guy healthy when the season starts. The training room is getting Pierce there. Dan, you talked about Boutte being a downfield receiver. Pierce, separation, runs after the catch, wins the 50-50 ball, runs a superior route tree. Now he gets his quarterback, which was commentary of bad health last year and throughout the offseason. Quarterback looks good in training camp. What are you going to do with Pierce, Dan? And for Jake's sake, tell us exactly where you're going to draft him.
Well, I do like Alec Pierce. I like where he's going right now. I think right now he's going around round 9 because of the injury. I think earlier before the injury and before the surgery, he was right around round 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say he's probably going to move back up to round 6 or 7. But there's a couple of things to figure out here, right? So earlier when he was going in round 6 or 7, Keenan Allen was not on the roster, right? But
stop doing the 6-7, Dan. We don't want to have to do it, but every time you say 6 or 7, Ferrell and I are contractually obligated to do this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because we might have a 6-year-old watching somewhere that's the only part of the public that enjoys that.
All right, 6-7.
No, we got to do it again. It's like we got to do it again. It's so funny because like 6 or 7 months ago, I was doing it in front of my kids, and my son, who's going to become a teenager in a few weeks when we're out in Las Vegas, he said, "Dad, nobody does that anymore." I'm like, you know what? The fact that nobody's doing it anymore, I'm bringing it back.
Makes it cool.
Like it's like the Macarena. I'm bringing it back. I'm bringing it all back. Too legit to quit. Go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
So I think a couple of things with Alec Pierce. One, you have to have confidence that he's going to be fully recovered from his injury to use that type of draft capital. If he's being drafted in round 6 or 7, thank you. And so not only do you have to take a chance that he's going to deliver on that draft position, you have to consider the players that are going in that range as well, like a Devontae Adams, a Roma Dunze, a Jadarian Price, perhaps. And so you're weighing and asking yourself, are you willing to take a chance on Pierce's upside coming back from an injury, or would you rather have the upside of the other players going around him? And for me, I think round 6 would be a little bit too rich. However, if he continues to slide to round 7, 8, or 9, I'll certainly consider him there. So I'm not completely out on Pierce, but I do think you got to draw the line somewhere on him.
In that KFFSC big payback slow draft that I'm in right now, I had 4 receivers at this point in the draft, and I ended up taking Alec Pierce. Again, this is Kentucky, so it's a little bit different. At the 9-10 as my number 5 receiver, and I was pretty pumped to get him there. I feel like he's going to be a player that we are fine fading right now, and then when it comes to be like early October, like, God, why the heck did we not draft this guy earlier?
So Balky, yeah. Would you have considered him in round 6 or round 7?
Dan, like you're killing me with this right now. No, and here's the thing. Here's why. Here's how I know I didn't consider him there, because in round 6, when I only had 3 receivers on this roster, I took Marvin Harrison for the first time all season, and I didn't want to take him. So, and I definitely like Alec Pierce a lot more. So I knew I was not considering Pierce in round 6 when I took Harrison there, who I don't like all that much. Okay, we are running up against it, but we still have some emails to get to here tonight. And the first one I have for you, Dan, is on my screen somewhere. Yes, Chad in Harrisburg, PA. How do you think the Laramie Tunsil injury is going to affect Jaden Daniels' stats this year? Thank you, Chad. Appreciate the email. And Dan, this is interesting too, because, you know, Tunsil was such a good blocker. You knew he was going to keep Daniels upright, but then you look at the flip side of things. Oh, maybe this makes Daniels scramble and run more this year because he won't have the protection of Tunsil. I don't know, different ways of looking at it. When you found out about Tunsil, how did that change the way you were drafting Jaden Daniels?
It didn't really change all that much. I think the Commanders, I almost said Redskins, but I think the Commanders will have enough time to fill the gap there. And if nothing else, there'll be a lot less holding penalties because Tunsil usually leads the league in holding penalties. So it'll be all right.
One more email here we have from Leon in Southfield, Michigan. Leon writes, hey, Dan, even though I'm with Balky, on the regression monster coming for Matthew Stafford. I still feel like he's going at a spot that makes sense. How much of him have you drafted this season? Congrats on the big win again. That is Leon, in Southfield, Michigan. And I will bring this up. I haven't brought this up at all last show. Matthew Stafford going super late. I think he's like wide receiver, or beg your pardon, like quarterback 14 or so right now. But it's super late in single quarterback formats. And if you think that Stafford is not getting his just due and he should be drafted earlier, why don't you join the Superflex Best Ball Tournament, the largest Superflex Best Ball Tournament out there, available at myffpc.com, where he is a mid-4th round pick. That's right. That's not a misprint. That's not a typo. Wide receiver quarterback 16, beg your pardon, in the mid-4th round to get Stafford. $35 to enter, $100,000 grand prize. Set it and forget it. Already approaching 90% capacity on this tournament, so get in now before you miss out. myffpc.com, the Superflex Best Ball Tournament is where that is going on. But what do you think about Stafford? This is a case, Dan, I think, of FFPC, KFFSC, just high-stakes players in general getting sharper and knowing that, yeah, there probably is regression coming for the dude who was MVP last year, right?
Yes.
Yep. One MVP, and he's being drafted outside the top 12 quarterbacks. This would never have been the case 10 or 15 years ago. He'd be a top 5 quarterback drafted. Now we see him slip. Are you still on board at the still higher than where he was going in 25, but maybe much lower than where we were expecting him to go, Dan?
Absolutely, especially when he's going into mid double-digit rounds. I think he's going between round 13 and round 15. In some drafts, at least, he's going that late.
Yeah, mid 13th is his ADP right now in the Big Gorilla.
Okay, good. Okay, so if you think Devontae Adams will have a good year, if you think Puka Nacua will have a good year, if you think Terrence Ferguson will have a good year, if you think Blake Corum will have a good year, if you think Kyron Williams will have a good year, well, who's the quarterback of that offense?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there might be some regression, but he'll be fine.
There's just a belief that
very good.
There's just a belief of our drafters that that quarterback must run for you to win in fantasy football, and I don't believe that's correct. There was you always say a running quarterback it ensures fantasy points. Well, Hurts had a lesser year last year, and Lamar Jackson had a forgettable year last year.
Justin Fields, remember Jeopardy talking about Justin Fields as a top 10 guy? That never happened.
And, we talk about, Pittman goes to Pittsburgh, and now Rodgers has better players around him who are always talking about, and Dan just broke it down. We're talking about players, assets for the offense. And now this offense is structured. It's been together for a while. It's the same coaching staff. It's a fallacy of oversight that this player is drafted. I can't wait to get somewhere and draft him. I would, and if I were to take a quarterback that more fits the description of what is typical for the drafting public of the FFPC, then Stafford is a player that I'm going to mix with that. A combination of Prescott and Stafford at double-digit rounds is very intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm. Ferrell, I just added fallacy of oversight to my Kentucky team name list. That is another good one from you, for sure. Stafford not going high in Dynasty. You mentioned Devontae Adams. I know you have a bunch of him this year, Dan. He is not a very sought-after asset in Dynasty, but you know who might be? Ty Simpson, who is on the Rams. These younger players, Terrence Ferguson, who we'll get into on Friday's show as well. But if you want to play Dynasty, 6-hour Dynasties are winding down. The Dynasty startups with the 6-hour clocks winding down. In fact, probably won't find a whole lot of them in the lobby starting tomorrow, but we will have 2 hours. We'll have 1 hour. We have live dynasties available at myffpc.com. If you want to play fantasy football year round, sign up for dynasty drafts at myffpc.com right now. Play fantasy football 365 days a year. They start at $100. They go all the way up to $5,000. myffpc.com. Ferrell, I'm fresh out of emails. We have one final question for Mr. Flamholtz here tonight.
That's how we always finish up. And we've reviewed so many players. Give us a fresh one that you absolutely love. Somebody wake Jake up and get him ready, because here comes a true answer. Give us somebody that you really love. And you're such a positive guy, you can find worth almost in every player. But give me a player perhaps that you just don't want to be in business with this year?
I don't want to be in business with.
You do not want to be in business.
Okay.
With Steve Balky, he can't even conceive.
There's a couple. One is T. Higgins, and it's not necessarily anything against T. Higgins, the player. I think he's a very good NFL player, but generally, when it comes to wide receivers, I look for the ones that are consistent volume players, right? And T. Higgins, for me, has too many down weeks. So the consistency of his scoring is a little bit of a concern for me. And right now, he's going in the 4th round around other players that I just prefer to draft. Zay Flowers, perhaps, Garrett Wilson, just to name a couple of running backs like Cam Scatterbo.
What about Jalen Waddle or Egbuka?
I like Waddle. I like his potential in the Denver Broncos offense. Bo Nix, I believe he had the most pass attempts last year. Mm-hmm. So those targets are going to have to go somewhere. And I think Waddle, they brought him in for a reason. They gave up a lot to get him. So I think the upside with Waddle is quite high. I think Egbuka, the upside is also quite high. I'm just a little bit concerned about his turf toe injury.
Me too.
And we'll see how that all shakes out. But T. Higgins is one of those guys. And, you asked about for me to choose a player that a lot of people are high on. So I know I'm going to get a lot of disagreement there. But for me, I just want more consistency out of the wide receiver position.
Yeah, and I get that. I mean, like Higgins is a player like I'm you draft him and you're just like you're opening yourself up. I'm ready to be hurt again because you know how many games he has missed and I get it. And I'm not super heavy in on him. And he is going in a spot, to your point, Dan, where there's other players that I have been drafting sometimes in lieu of Higgins, McConkey, Egbuka, Garrett Wilson, who you mentioned as well, and certainly Zay Flowers and Tyrell McMillan creeping up there as well.
Now, if you would slide to round 6 or 7, it would be a different story.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
There's nobody I would not take in round 6 or 7. God, the 6 or 7 show episode tonight. I'm gonna have to rename the title for YouTube here. Dan, these are players you don't want to be in business with. To ask the other part of Ferrell's question, who's a player you're trying to get everywhere?
So I mentioned there's other players around T. Higgins that I would rather draft, and one of them is Garrett Wilson. I think if Garrett Wilson stays healthy, he could be he could potentially catch 100 balls this year. He's definitely the clear wide receiver 1 in the Jets offense. And say what you want about Geno Smith, but he is getting an upgrade at quarterback. And I think that Jet offense could surprise some people and be a lot better than what a lot of people are thinking.
The worst thing for Breece Hall, the worst thing for Garrett Wilson would be a Geno Smith injury this year. And then you get Cade Klubnik out there, like trying to run that offense. It'd be terrible. But what's the great point about that is, and I think people understand this too, Dan, is if that does happen, Hall and Wilson are going to be really hard pressed to return value on their ADPs. But if Smith stays healthy, and if he starts 17 games for the Jets this year, Hall and Wilson, it's going to be difficult for them not to smash at their ADPs. And that's the great part about targeting a guy like Garrett Wilson. By the way, you can draft Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, any of these other players in FFPC Player One, draft against 11 smart CPU players and win cash or free entries into the Big Gorilla or the main event. Those drafts start off at $10. They fill instantly. Once you register, you're drafting right away. You don't have to wait around for 11 other players. FFPC Player One. I'm going to say this again. A lot of people were very skeptical about this. I encourage them to try one draft. Some of them are just it's not for me. And others will be like, I'm like 3 dozen drafts in. This is great. So try it out for $10, myffpc.com. Dan, this is a lot of fun. This has been a lot of fun tonight. I know I kept you a little bit longer. We kept you a little bit longer, but anytime we have you on, you always bring the insight. You always bring the real, and we appreciate that. I will see you. When are you getting into Louisville this weekend?
I'm in Louisville right now, actually.
Oh my God. Are you working? Are you working there? Oh, yep. Okay. All right.
Yep. So I'll be at the dinner tomorrow night with Ferrell. And then I look forward to seeing you, Balky, on Friday afternoon.
Yes, I'm drafting at 1:00, as long as my Uber gets me there in time. And if not, Ferrell and I have a fail-safe in place. But I'm drafting right away on Friday. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to hang out with you, talk shop. I can wait to draft against you because that has not usually turned out very well for me. But I look forward to hanging out with you and talking. It's always a good time talking with you on the show. Thank you so much tonight, Dan, for giving us your time. Congratulations on your 2025 championship. And most importantly, good luck in becoming the first ever Ferrell back-to-back KFFSC Main Event champion.
J.A. Carey and Mike Fox did it in 2013 and 2014. It has been done. But hey, there's never been a three-peat, Blue Hammer, so come on.
Yes, exactly. And Dan, in order to get the three-peat, you got to get the repeat, which would be this year. So good luck doing that. We'll see you in a couple of days, my friend.
Thank you for the kind words. And as always, thank you very much for having me. It's always fun. It's been a pleasure.
You're the man. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. The Blue Hammer, the 2025 KFFSC Main Event champion, Dan Flamholtz, going for a back-to-back KFFSC
His
Main Event
good
title.
luck charm daughter Kelly will be joining him from
Nice.
on Saturday.
We hung out with her and Dan. I think it was it Sunday night of last year or Saturday night? I can't remember. It blurs all together. It's always so much fun. Ferrell, I'm just gonna. I wanted to say just real quick about my Kentucky experience. I remember this is I was going to this back in the early 2000s where it was nowhere close to what you have built it up to now. Where we're just hanging out in a conference center and making picks or whatever, and there's one or two drafts and then that's it. Now it's you have this thing that not only is online, but it has spanned, and next year will expand to 3 live weekends. You've had 2 live weekends for the KFFSC the last several years. And then this weekend, you're going to have drafts starting Friday afternoon, going all the way through Sunday evening in a huge ballroom that hundreds of people are going to. People that are going to be out in Las Vegas, people that have won 6 figures, 7 figures playing in the highest of high stakes. They come to Louisville to draft here as well. And, Dan mentioned the champions dinner that's going to be Thursday night. I'll be working because I'm streaming a show Thursday night, so I won't be there. But the big award ceremony that you always have on Saturday to honor everybody. I mean, the monolith you have created here, kudos to you and kudos again, because I have never run into anybody who's gone to Kentucky and you're like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. Everybody always comes back. It's so much fun.
Well, thank you, Valky. That's quite an honor for you to say. And the type of personalities that we have in the room is what makes it go. And yours is a big one, and we love that. And it's it's a community that when people come, you're not going to meet any strangers. You're gonna feel good, and you're gonna and to make Billy Van Ormer happy, every meal was served with fried chicken. And, Bobby Sangerman has been on the road a couple years and been away, and he'll be returning this year. I spoke with Jay Reed today, who's taken a break from fantasy football for a year, but he'll be back with us next year. And
awesome.
That's it, and so we understand in this world, there's many obligations, but if you can't be with us this year, we want you to be with us in the future. We keep trying to make it a little better every year. So thank you for those nice words.
Yeah, and I'll bring this up too. The Dizzle, Dave Gerzak, the co-founder of the FFPC, wasn't enough just to come to Louisville this year. He drafted last Sunday in Northern Kentucky as well, and he's flying back out to Louisville, I think, tomorrow.
He and his beloved co-manager, Mr. Kurt Hall.
And the real Leroy. And two-packer Ron Meyer will be at team. I was the only one from Team Wisconsin in Louisville last year, and I felt out of place. And then everybody was like, God, I can't believe we missed it last year. Everybody's coming this year. So it's going to be great. I will see you Friday afternoon, my friend. And then we're going to do a show. And just by the way, and Ferrell, I should mention this, and you probably brought this up to me already. The show that we're doing Friday night that's going to air 10 p.m. Eastern, it's recorded. So I will be drafting, Ferrell will be working. You will see a show at 10 o'clock on this channel, but it will not be us doing it live. It is going to be a recorded show. So just so everybody's aware about that, that is what's going on. KFFSC.com. And the last thing I'll mention too, Ferrell, live spots. Do we have anything left live this weekend? I know we got a ton of stuff online.
We do. We have two drafts that if you no one is going to make any last minute decisions to come to the KFFSC and jump on an airplane, I think, and get here in 2 days. So what we've done is our last two drafts, a main event draft at 11 p.m. on Saturday night.
Which I'm in.
Yes, sir. And it has 3 spots remaining. And we are opening that up to what we call a virtual drafter, which is how we handled a lot of our drafters back in the days of COVID. And we do it in a seamless way. And that would be great. If anyone would like to join that way, they should call me at 502-523-5057. That we also have 3 spots in a big payback for Sunday afternoon. We're also virtually open for drafters. That's $1,000 buy-in, and a dominant team can win $9,000 in that league. And that's a great competitive league. And those 5 spots will close out our live and for this year. But our online is filling daily, and we're trying to have as many as we can between now and our final day of drafting, September 7th, because bulky. That's when I get on an airplane to head to Planet Hollywood on the Strip and draft in the FFPC.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that this year as well. KFFSC.com is where to go to register for those leagues. If you are going to be a hybrid online player for those live leagues, the Midnight Madness one, and that big payback that Ferrell mentioned, 502-523-5057. It's up on the screen right now. That is where to contact Ferrell and get that going. And the next live online draft that the KFFSC will have is going to be Monday night at 9 p.m. But the following night on September 1st, the 1st and 10 division, only 2 spots left for that. So make sure you're registering for that right now. And I'll just shout out my good buddy and employee at FFPC, Jake Venuti, who I'm currently drafting against in one of the KFFSC big paybacks. He and I have teamed up in the Holy Roller division, a 4-hour clock, 4 spots left in that for the KFFSC main event. So register for that. So Jake and I can be at each other's throats arguing over who we're going to take in that.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Ferrell, it's going to be fun seeing you Friday, man. Take care. We'll talk with you soon. That is Ferrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football in this extended KFFSC preview episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. The last thing I'll mention is chop leagues over at FFPC. They start off at $35. They go up from there. Just the object of it, don't be the lowest scoring team in your league on any given week, and you will win your league. That's it. You never have to be the high score. You don't have to be the medium score. Just don't be the low score, and you can avoid that chop in FFPC chop leagues. Again, myffpc.com is where to go for that. Those have live and slow drafts filling up. myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. I want to thank Dan Flamholtz, Ferrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob Bryson, and of course, each and every one of you. We were toying with the idea of doing a show next week. The Dizzle kind of shut me down on that. He said, we're going to be too busy. I need you running interference and taking care of FFPC players. So the next live HSFF hour will not be, brace yourselves, until Wednesday, September 16th. Basically, 3 weeks from now is our next live episode. So we will not be doing a live show until then. However, we will have you covered. Extra Reps will air this Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern time with myself, Ferrell, and Dominic Guzzetti, the former FFPC and KFFSC league champions in the chat earlier tonight. You could watch him live. He was actually on the KFFSC preview episode last year. And we look forward to having him on Extra Reps at 10 p.m. this Friday. Tomorrow night, live on the FFPC YouTube channels, YouTube socials, FFPC socials, beg your pardon, as well as the Better Sports Network. It is Insider Access, 7 until 9, with yours truly and Fantasy Alarms, Colby Conway joining me. That's going to be a lot of fun. And I believe that is the final Insider Access that we're going to have until September 17th. Yeah, no, that's not accurate. Yeah, it is accurate. September 17th will be the next Insider Access episode. So that show also takes a 2-week hiatus, and we'll be back on September 17th. Extra reps with Dom on Friday. And then, of course, in case you missed live FFPC Big Gorilla draft coverage with the Three Goombas and Fantasy Alarms Andrew Cooper last night, check that out at the FFPC YouTube channel or any of the socials. That was a lot of fun. Actually, I watched that one. It was great. I was hanging out in the chat watching those guys. And they did a great job. So check that out. myffpc.com is where to register for the Big Gorilla. You can watch it on any of the FFPC socials. That is going to do it for our show. For Dan Flamholtz, for Ferrell Elliott, I'm Eric Balkman. And as our friend Vince Staffolino reminds us, you are officially over the hump now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
'Tis the season, so I'm going to point this out, ladies and gentlemen. If you are looking for some Big Gorilla fun tonight, we have 9 spots left in the midnight draft, which is coming up in about, 35 minutes, about 35 minutes from now, and only 9 spots. That's probably going to be a safe fill. And then in case you missed that one, we just added a 12:30 a.m. Big Gorilla draft tonight as well. So check that out, myffpc.com. And if you don't want to do a Big Gorilla, we have Best Ball Tournament and Superflex Best Ball Tournament as well filling up tonight. The drafts go as late as 1 a.m. I'm talking to you West Coasters. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you on Friday night with extra reps, and we'll see you hopefully in Louisville this weekend. It's going to be a blast. Hopefully you can join us. Thanks for watching, everybody.